client the other day. He was 16, and he asked me, Trish, what makes something toxic? And the reason he was asking is he wanted to see if he was actually being toxic. The whole thing inspired me on every level, but it really got me thinking, and I wanted to share with you what I told him. My name is Trish Law. I'm a trauma-informed life coach, and I like to make complicated human experiences easy to break down, understand, and change for the better. So I sat and I thought about it, and I thought, God, that's a goddamn good question, isn't it? Not just the question itself, but the fact that he was willing to say, I think I might be, and I might be like contributing to toxic experiences in my family, in my life. I think I may be the problem, and I want to know what you think toxicity means. So when I talked to him about it, I kind of was like, all right, there's three main elements that have to come together, and all three elements have to be there. And it's how they converge that makes something toxic. So it's not like one individual thing, it's a culmination of at least three. And this is the most simple way I can explain it. I'm gonna explain it to you first, and then we're gonna break it down visually. Okay, so then maybe it'll give you the opportunity to experience yourself and whether you're involved in toxicity or contributing to toxicity, your ability to see that a little better. So the first element of toxicity, first ingredient that makes something toxic would be an emotional state, like one specific emotional state. Guilt, euphoria, numbness, intoxication, grief, depression, anxiety, etc. It's kind of like Mad Libs. Pick the emotional state that you either prefer or can't seem to get yourself out of. And that's the first element to doing a little discernment, having a little discernment about whether or not something could be toxic. The second element is a repetitive pattern, right? So that repetitive pattern would be like a repetitive pattern of thought, belief, or behavior, or all three. So there has to be some sort of pattern involved that overlaps with the aforementioned emotional state, right? So this is how we're starting to put together the building blocks of toxicity right here. And the last element is actually essential, okay? And the last element that overlaps to really qualify something as toxic is when something prevents growth, healing, change, or perpetuates sameness. In other words, it prevents people from changing, or it really digs its heels into keeping things exactly the same. So really, at the end of the day, something that constitutes toxicity is something that prevents somebody's ability to heal or grow, change for the better, and like digs its heels into keeping the status quo intact. You need me to draw it out? It'll make it easier to understand. First thing is emotion. Second thing is some sort of pattern. And last but not least, the third element is something that prevents change, prevents growth, prevents healing, and perpetuates sameness. Does that make sense? All right, I'm gonna draw it another way. Okay, so it's a Venn diagram, as my love language is, as you know. First element is the emotional state. Look at these, aren't they really cute? Second thing is some sort of pattern. And the third piece is anything that prevents healing, growth, change, and perpetuates sameness. So this is a little tree I drew with a cross through it so you can see. Right? So right in the middle here is what, if all three of these things come together, perpetual emotional state, a pattern, and something that prevents healing, growth, change, or perpetuates sameness equals toxicity. There's a little T in the middle just in case. So let me break this down a little bit more here. If we look at the overlap between our patterns and our emotions, typically most people are stuck in survival mode, which is one of the elements of toxicity. It's like a perpetual emotional state, a perpetual thought pattern, or perpetual belief system. I work on this with people all the time. The overlap in the emotional piece and the prevention of growth or healing and the perpetuation of sameness would be like resentment and then continuing to people please, keeping things the same, not changing anything, not calling people out, not setting boundaries, things like that. Codependency is a big one here. And this last overlap here is any pattern that prevents somebody's ability to change or grow. Addiction would fall into this category here. So you can see how there's like little elements of each one here. But if we look at the three things all together, it's pretty easy to see what makes something toxic. And toxicity is something that really starts to kill your spirit, to me, in my work. It's like, what is killing this person's spirit? What is preventing this person from being able to experience themselves differently, experience different emotions, experience growth or healing, experience a different way of showing up in their lives? Anything that goes against those things would be, in my world, something that's slowly killing somebody in installments. Therefore, it's toxic. Just because it doesn't happen in a really overt way doesn't mean it's not incrementally killing somebody's spirit. And you know, I just gotta tell you something about that. That really puts a hair across my ass. Really does. So here's a few examples of things I believe are toxic. I believe codependency is toxic. I believe control is toxic. Obviously things like addiction, preventing someone else's growth, cock blocking your own growth. Self-sabotage is toxic. Needing to be right all the time is toxic. Before you start peeking at other people's windows and saying, yeah, I know, that's right, this person's toxic or that person's toxic, look in the mirror first, please. It takes zero talent and zero self-awareness to start picking this off on other people. That's easy to do. That's why restaurant critics exist, people that give spa reviews, because it's easy to see this. It's easy to read the label from outside the jar, okay? It's easy to see toxicity in other people, okay? The same way it's easy to tell if they didn't brush their teeth. They don't know, but you do. You know what's a lot harder? To be brave enough to spot the toxicity in yourself. Any repetitive emotional state, any repetitive behavioral thought pattern, belief system pattern, and anything that prevents your healing growth, your ability to change, and your rigidity to sameness is your own personal toxic thing. So before you go looking in somebody else's window for that, please do yourself a favor and call yourself out on it. Because what's toxic to you is totally different for somebody else. It's a very personal thing. This is why self-awareness is important. That's why I coach authenticity. In other words, it's going to show up differently for every single person. You got to do the work to see how it shows up for you. And once you get really good at calling yourself out on that, your tolerance to toxicity starts to dissipate. Your capacity for authenticity, nervous system flexibility, self-awareness, and personal responsibility increases. You're going to experience a lot less toxicity in your life. I don't make the rules, baby. I just read the news. Hope this is helpful. I love you. I see you. I'll see you tomorrow.